So today we are going to discuss about the winds and their wind action. So wind is one of the important geological agents in which there are transportation and erosion might have takes place. It is one of the good geological agent to transport the material to the various parts from one place to another place. It has been that is why it is known as a geological agent to carry the particles or weathered materials or particles from the one place to the another place by lifting the particles.
సార్ మీకు పిక్స్ పెట్టాను కదా సార్ విండ్ మీద.
హలో
హలో సార్,
చెప్పండి.
అది పిక్స్ పెట్టాను కదా సార్ ఫోన్ లో, లాస్ట్ చాప్టర్ విండ్. దాని ప్రకారం చెప్పరా సార్ ఒకసారి? అర్థం కాలేదు.
ఒక్క నిమిషం చూస్తాను. Just wait for 5 minutes.
ప్రీతి ఏమైంది ప్రీతి? ప్రీతి హలో
చెప్పదా
సార్ రాలేరా?
సార్ వచ్చారు, అది ట్రాఫిక్ లో ఉన్నట్టున్నారు, ఒక 5 minutes ఆగమన్నారు.
ఓకే ఓకే ప్రీతి.
Yeah, very good afternoon to one and all. Yeah, sorry for the late. So in which block 4, the last topic is winds. So in this topic, we should cover the aims of winds and their geological activities, the wind erosion, and transportation by wind, and deposition by wind. Transportation due to winds, transportation due to erosion, and transportation and etc. The things should be learned by studying this chapter, wind. So, so what it has been blown? You can call it as wind. So as we can feel when the wind blows. So the movement, the moving air, you can call it as wind, where the motion of wind, motion of air, you can call it as a wind. So as we know, the wind geological activities, wind geological or earth surface activities which have been taken, mostly the desert regions as we know. So most of these, the rocks are getting erosion and transportation and deposition has been highly affected by the wind action. So as we can see, the wind action should be takes place. So the transportation, whatever the wind blows, as we know, the eddies. So generally, you can Sudigundar. So like that, where the eddies which has been takes place, the wind can lift up the particles, the fine dust and all the particles which lift and move towards far from the institute area or primary area. So all these things which comes under the wind action. So wind action takes place transportation and erosion and as well as deposition. So here, whatever the moisture, dust, and gases which has been, all this comes under with the effect of wind. As we have seen the dust and as well as the moisture concentration and particles which are very minute particles which has been lifted when along the movement of wind action. It means the wind is one of the very good geological agents, and also it is a very good sorting agent. Sorting means to separate. So it's very good sorting agent of various size. Depends upon the size. It can be depend upon the size. It can be varies the various places and where it has going to take place in order to maintaining all these geological activities in this wind action. It is very because the wind is a very good sort out. The material is going to be sorted out by the wind action. So that is why we can say the wind is very good sorting material to sort out according to grain size, according to particle sizes. It has been sorted out very easily and perfectly. And see the geological activities or due to wind action, as we have seen, mostly in the arid regions or desert regions, the ఎడారి ప్రాంతాలలో ముఖ్యంగా శుష్క ప్రాంతాలు అంటూ ఉంటాం కదా. So like that, in this desert regions or arid regions, most of the places where it has been the wind blows are mostly common place. In the spaces of the, it's coming to see the what you can call it as erosion due to wind action. Erosion. The erosion basically two heads. They are and deflation, abrasion and deblation. So the erosion can takes place by the two activities, which are abrasion and deflation. Abrasion ante apagarshana, garshana rapid antuntaru apagarshana, and deflation means egaraveta. So in which these two heads we can able to study how the erosion has been takes place by the wind. So here, for example, due to this abrasion, so the particles have been rubbing to the one another and their flow, or it may be the weathered products or or minute particles, or most we can say the small grain size which has been lifted out with the wind action. It has been transported towards the wind action. So this is abrasion activities. Then coming to deflation. So deflation is an action of wind by lifting the material, to lift and move it. To lift out the material from the one place to another place by aerial erosion, so that it takes place in even some grain size of particles which have been lifted and they are going to move away from the wind action. This is deflation. So mostly in the regions of the wind is a very good, strong energy source to move the material from towards the in situ areas or primary areas towards the in situ areas. So it is mostly in which the grooves and streaks which are going to be formed on the rocks. Due to the wind action also, the particles, dust particles or other particles which has been left and which are going to be abrasion on the rocks, so that the grooves are formed on the basement rocks. So this has been tracking which are going to form the basement rocks by the wind action. So for this we can say the most of the rocks which are going to form, like what we call as pentacanter and dry canter, as well as ventifacts. They are very small size grains, the ventifacts. These are the different erosional features which are formed by the wind action. So they are means encantator. Incanter means ఏకముఖశిలలు అంటాం కదా. సో ఒకే రకమైన అంటే ఒక వైపు మాత్రమే కనిపించడం ఇష్టం, అంటే ఒక వైపు చెక్కినట్టుగా కనిపించడం మనం చెప్పిన ఇన్కాంటర్ అంటాం. అండ్ ఆల్సో Decanter, త్రిముఖ శిలలు, and or which are also called as ventifacts. So these ventifacts are erosional feature which has occurred by the wind, which is going to be just like a polish the rocks. So all these rocks which are going to polish on where it has been seen very clearly towards the wind direction. The rocks are designed, their shape, like they are incanter, tricanter, and ventifacts. These are the different shapes of rocks towards the where the wind direction. Almost all the rocks which has been takes place along the wind direction. So these features are which are showing the direction of wind, where it is blowing and how long it is going to be blowing. So these are the different type of features which are formed by the erosional features of wind. And mostly the transportation due to wind. Transportation due to wind. As we know, transportation is very useful to the materials from one place to another place by the wind action. So most of the materials which has been depends upon the shape and density and what you can call it as how it is going to be takes place, or where it has the minute grains. The minute grains, or it may be the what you can call even it can be a suspended loaded material which are going to take place in various places. So from this, the small fragments or sands or silty materials. So the wind can blow the mostly minute sandy materials or gravels, or it may be we can say dust and dust storms, which are easy to float on the air, so that they can easy to transport by the wind action. And if it is somewhat larger grains of gravels, they may be rolled out on the earth surface, so which are called as dust storms. And these it is about 40 kilometers per 40 kilometers and again 1 millimeters to sand which has been lifting the materials. 40 kilometers, it has up to 1 millimeter of dia of sand gravels can be transported up to 40 kilometers. Just you can imagine. So mostly the storms, so hurricanes is about 6 to 10 millimeters. The dia of a huge gravels, and it has been rolling on the earth's surface. So the simple thing is, so whatever the light particles are low density particles, which are lift out, which are lift and which are transported in the wind action by lifting the materials. So even though somewhat large size, so it is about 6 to 10 millimeters of diameter grains or sand particles also, which is not lift, but they are rolled on the earth surface. It means which are able to capacity to lift the material. It can transport it by the wind action on the floating nature on the wind, but which is not able to lift, but they can transport by the rolling on the earth surface because of somewhat high density. So like that, this is mostly we can say the sand deposits, which are highly uh, very good important deposits of sand deposits, which are affected by the wind action. So mostly the sand deposits which are takes place by these wind actions, their particles, if it is somewhat larger in size or medium sized particles of sand, which are also be formed or deposited, such type of deposits we can call it as a sand deposits. These sand deposits are which are formed by the wavy action of wind. Then coming to their load, so the oval or egg-shaped or crescent roof, where the if the area is undulations, means having depressions and elevations. So if the desert regions, it is as any depressions and elevations, definitely the wind action as much takes place. So with the flat area, the wind action may not take place properly, but where the regions it has upright areas or the highly or hilly region areas which are there. So at that places, most of these are the regions which are takes place very clearly and quite common. Then see the deposits mostly which are formed by their activities, mostly which are going to be tornadoes, saltation, and migrates. So such type of deposits are going to form towards all these sand deposits. They are showing the deposits are itself. They are showing their shape and direction. It represents or it's responsible to the direction of the wind action. Then the deposition due to wind. The deposition due to wind, majorly deposition, erosion due to wind action, transportation due to wind action, and deposition by the wind action. So mostly as we know, the water flows mostly in the rivers. When the river flow is suddenly stopped, then it has been deposited their particles in the bottom of the river. Yes, whereas in the rivers, as we know, ఎప్పుడైతే మనం జల ప్రవాహాలు ప్రవహిస్తున్నప్పుడు నదులలో, when it has been the speed has been decreased in the river flow, the water flows in the rivers, then definitely whatever the particles are present in the river flow or water flow, so those particles which are deposited on the bottom of the river. So at the same way, even though what are the high density particles which are deposited at the meandering of the rivers, like that, even though the saltation process, so saltation process, the rolled and whatever the pits or holes are there on the earth surface, which has been mostly the wind action which has going to take place, not this way. So you can see due to the horizontal and vertical formations of these formation by the wind action, we can say the transverse one is barkans and the vertical ones are the sides. So we can see the barkans and sides. The figures you can see in a figure. Are you able to see the figures barkan and sides? I think the page number 139 or something else. Your English books. So the barkans and sides. Yes, are you able to see the pictures? Yes, we can see the pictures of barkans and sides. So these are the barkans which are the transverse motions, whereas the sides are the vertical motion of sand particles deposits. So these are the sand deposits. So sand deposit has been transverse motion of the wind action takes place bar times. And the wind action takes place in longitudinal direction. They are called as what you can call as sipes. So barkines are the almost crescent shape. Chandravankakaram antuntaru. So the barkines are almost the crescent shape. It has been having some slope inclination on the backside. It's been used sand dunes. So these are very crescent shape. Chandravankakaram antuntaru shapes which are formed and it has some angle. It shows to represents the wind action. So these barkines are mostly from the long time. If the winds are blown towards a single direction, since from a long time the winds are blowing in a particular direction, or in a even single direction. The winds are restricted or bound to the single direction. Since from a long time, then these barkines are going to form. So it means the barkines are showing towards one direction. It shows one direction means since long back or since from the long years, of long time, the winds are blowing towards the same direction, then these barkines are takes place. So once you see the barkines, there has been some slopes and towards one-way direction of flowing of wind. So mostly in this wind flow, is there any changes will occur or is there any direction changes will occur? The symmetrical sand dunes may not form. So if the direction of wind flow, if it is changed, the direction of flow of wind, then these sand dunes may not symmetrical. These sand dunes may not symmetrical. It may be asymmetrical. So if it is keep on long time, the wind blows from towards a single direction, then it is going to form what you can call it as a symmetrical sand dunes will takes place for long time of wind blows. Then coming to sipe. So sipe sand dunes. These are the it has been look like say Arabian sword. So this sipe is look like the Arabian swords. It has been the wind, if the wind blows to more than one direction, two or three directions, if the sipes are formed. So this sipe standard structure is similar to that of a Arabian sword. Arabula katti antuntam kada. So Arabula katti ఆకారాన్ని ఈ యొక్క సైప్స్ అనేటువంటి పోలి ఉంటాయి. అంటే దీస్ బార్కైన్స్ అండ్ సైప్స్ అనేవి ఏంటి? ఇసుక యొక్క నిక్షేపాలు. ఇసుక దిబ్బలు అంటుంటాం మనం, శాండ్ డ్యూన్స్ అంటే ఇసుక దిబ్బలు. ఇసుక దిబ్బల యొక్క నిక్షేపాలు. సో ఎక్కడైతే ఇసుక దిబ్బలు అంటే అంటేనేమో చాలా కాలం నుండి ఒకే వైపు అంటే ఒకే దిశగా పవనాలు వీస్తున్నప్పుడు ఏర్పడినటువంటి నిక్షేపాలను మనం బార్కైన్స్ అంటాం. ఇవి ట్రాన్స్వర్స్ మోషన్ అంటే అంటే గాలులు అడ్డంగా వీచడం వలన అవి కూడా ఒకే రకంగా అంటే ఒకే దిశ వైపు చాలా ఎక్కువ కాలం ప్రవహించడం వలన అలాంటి పవనాల వల్ల మనకు ఈ బార్కైన్స్ అనేవి ఏర్పడతాయి. సో దే ఆర్ ద ట్రాన్స్వర్స్ మోషన్ ఆఫ్ విండ్ బ్లోస్. Whereas coming to the sipe sand dunes or sipe structures, sipes అనేవి అరబ్బుల యొక్క కత్తిని పోలి ఉంటాయి. ఇవి 2 లేదా 3 దిశల నుండి పవనాలు ప్రవహించడం వలన అంటే ఒకటి లేదా ఎక్కువ దిశల నుండి పవనాలు ప్రవహించడం వలన ఇలాంటి నిర్మాణాన్ని పోలినటువంటి ఇసుక దిబ్బలు శాండ్స్ అని ఏర్పడతాయి. వీటిని మనం సైప్స్ అని పిలుస్తూ ఉంటాం. బార్కైన్స్ అండ్ సైప్స్ ఆర్ ద డిపాజిట్స్ ఆఫ్ విండ్ యాక్షన్. అండ్ ఆల్సో వీ కెన్ ట్రాన్స్వర్స్ డ్యూన్స్. వీటిని మనం తిర్రెక్ ఇసుక దిబ్బలు అంటాం. ట్రాన్స్వర్స్ డ్యూన్స్, తిర్రెక్ ఇసుక దిబ్బలు చూడొచ్చు మీ టెక్స్ట్ బుక్ లో. తిర్రెక్ ఇసుక దిబ్బలు ట్రాన్స్వర్స్ డ్యూన్స్. Have you seen తిర్రెక్ sand dunes? So these T-Rex sand dunes which are formed where the vegetation is very low, or even often the crisis lacking of plants. So where the vegetation or plantation is very less or lacking of plants, and having more concentration of sand, and it has been these are going to form perpendicular to the wind direction. So such type of sand dunes, or we can call it as transverse dunes. So transverse dunes are mostly takes place where the plantation is very less, means vegetation is very less, or the forest areas is very less, and even absent of these plantation, and having of high concentration of sand, and due to these are the deposits which are formed through the perpendicular to the direction of wind, perpendicular to the direction of wind. Such type of deposits are, we can call it as transverse dunes, and coming to triple marks, as we know, this is one of the sedimentary structure. Triple marks, వీటిని మనం తరగా గుర్తులు అంటాం, triple marks. So triple marks are the structure. It is a sedimentary structure. So when the sand deposits are very smooth and initial, when they are in the moisture concentration or having of some wet condition, and on this wet condition, when it has been by the wavy motion of water, as we know, most of the lake waves or the oceanic waves or sea waves, when it has been moving the oceanic water in the form of tides on the beaches, when these beaches are dry up for a long time, and these wavy motions or wavy structure which has been preserved and they are becomes consolidated to form as a sedimentary structures. So such type of wavy nature or wavy structures are takes place on the sedimentary formations, and they are going to become into dry, and such type of structure can be called as triple marks. Mostly, we can say most of the sedimentary basins of the sedimentary rocks, sediments paina, avkshepaala paina, generally where the water bearing zones. సో నీరంతా కూడా అలల మాదిరిగా మనకు నిత్యం కదులుతూ ఉంటుంది, అవును కదా. సో ఈ అలలన్నీ కూడా క్రమంగా ఒకసారి ఆగిపోయిన తర్వాత, when these wet conditions of sediments are going to become dry, and these structures, the wavy structure which has been preserved on the rocks, so they are becoming as a ripple marks on the sediments, so which are called ripple marks. So this is very good feature which mostly we can see in the sedimentary rocks. So why? Because sediment rocks are very loose sediments. So these loose sediments before consolidation, and these water bearing zones in the form of wavy motion, when it comes to these sediments, and after the waves are stopped, then these sediments are going to become dry, and these structures are remaining on the sedimentary rocks. So such type of rocks, or we can call it as ripple marks, or also we can some other sedimentary structures, mud cracks and trails, and current beddings. All these are the sedimentary structures similarly in this way which are going to form. And mostly coming to loess, and mostly dust, clay, and loess are the very good deposits of very good products of the even wind. So mostly we can see the deposits which are takes place. Here you can see the what you can call it as some of the products, mostly the dust particles or clay deposits, which are mostly depends upon the wind velocity. So it depends upon the wind velocity. So when the wind velocity is decreased, and when the wind is blowing, when the wind velocity is decreasing or reducing, then ultimately whatever it is carrying the particles, either dust or particles or whatever the grains, all these things which are going to most of the part of this body, it has been deposited on the earth surface. So due to the rains, these dust particles are just been sought out by the even rainwater, as well as what you can call it as by the wind blow action. So that is why a wind blow is a very good sorting material. As we know, in this occasion, I can say a very good example. Mostly some particles, the food particles, even the food particles we are when we are using by wind action blowing, బాగా కొన్ని పదార్థాలు, తిండి పదార్థాలు, ఈవెన్ కమ్స్ టు ది రైస్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్, వడ్లను కూడా మనం చూసినట్లయితే ఏం చేస్తుంటాం, మనం వడ్లను గాలికి పడతా ఉంటాం. సో ఇందులో ఏమైతే అకార్డింగ్ టు ది డెన్సిటీ ఆఫ్ ద పార్టికల్స్ దే ఆర్ బీన్ సార్ట్ అవుట్. ఎస్, విండ్ యాక్షన్ చూడండి, వెరీ గుడ్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్. సో మనం వడ్లను పడుతున్నప్పుడు ఏమైతే ఆటోమేటిక్ గా డెన్సిటీ ఎక్కువగా ఉన్నటువంటి, సాంద్రత ఎక్కువగా ఉన్నటువంటి అక్కడే పడిపోతుంది. సాంద్రత కొంచెం ఎక్కువగా ఉంటే కొంచెం దూరంగా పడుతుంది. ఇంకా లైట్ వెయిట్ ఉంటే మనం వాటిని ఏమంటాం, డస్ట్ పార్టికల్స్ అంటాం. డస్ట్ అండ్ తౌడు అంటుంటారు కదా. సో దీస్ ఆర్ ద ప్రోడక్ట్స్ విచ్ ఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు బి away from the main products. So these are not useful, they are the waste materials. So dust or all the particles or light particles, the grains are not much takes place. All these which has been takes place, they are away from the source of air we are giving. It means అంటే విండ్ని ఉపయోగించి మనము గాలిని, పవనాలను ఉపయోగించి మనం చాలా రకాల పదార్థాలను మనం ఏర్పాటు చేస్తాం. So this way all these particles which has been very good sorting of a wind action. So like it depends upon the density. So when it's wind blowing perfectly and wind velocity is high, ultimately these particles are sort out based on the density. అంటే పదార్థాల యొక్క సాంద్రత పైన, పదార్థాల యొక్క బరువు పైన ఆటోమేటిక్గా బరువును బట్టి ఏం చేస్తే ఎక్కువగా బరువు ఉన్నటువంటి పదార్థాలు అక్కడే పడతాయి. కొంచెం బరువు తక్కువ ఉన్నాయి, కొంచెం దూరంలో పడతాయి. ఇంకా తేలికపాటి పదార్థాలు ఇంకా చాలా దూరంలో పడతాయి. అంటే ఈ రకంగా వీఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు బి సార్ట్ అవుట్ ద మెటీరియల్స్ ఫ్రమ్ ది విచ్ వన్ వీ నీడ్. మనకి ఏదైతే కావాలో వాటి నుండి మనం అనవసరమైన వాటిని ఈ గాలి ద్వారా వేర్పాటు చేస్తూ ఉంటాం. సో దట్ ఈస్ ఇట్ ఇస్ వెరీ గుడ్ సార్టింగ్ మెటీరియల్ ఆఫ్ విండ్ యాక్షన్. And where the wind action has been takes place, and where the winds are properly takes place, and the products will be sorted out very easily. So like these clay materials, whereas the dust particles and the loess materials, which are called aeolian deposits. So whatever the deposits are being takes place, or which are takes place by the wind action, that takes place by wind action, which are all called as aeolian deposits. Aeolian deposits. So they are the very essential, and they are having some distinguished features on which it has been takes place in the various places. So all these matters which have been takes place in order to completion of all, and where it has been mostly takes place in order to completion. So these are the deposits that have been takes place most, the loess, clay, and so even the cross sections, you can see all these different type of soil dunes. Mostly it is about 10 to 12 meters of height. The huge flatty deposits which are takes place by the wind action by soil. So these soil flatties, we can call it as soil dunes, or the soil caves. So you can see very clearly the soil pavements, you can see very clearly. So according to the loess, so some of the glaciers, the glacial fill of these deposits which has been quite takes place. In order to completion of these, the deposits which are going to take place. This is very good action by the winds. So the wind is a very small topic. So in this topic, just we should cover the questions like what is the sand dunes, iskatibal and weight antam, and coming to the what are the geological activities of wind. So what is the geological activity of wind action? So wind erosion, wind transportation, wind deposition. These are the three. The essay question comes. So write about the geological action of wind. So in which we need to write transportation, deposition, and erosion, and also the deposits. So the deposits due to wind action. So wind action deposits mostly are barkines, sites, yes, barkines, sites, and triple marks, and what you can call it as transverse dunes. So these are the very good examples for the deposits, wind deposits. And short question mostly write about the sand dunes, and write about the deserts and their geological activities, and what is loess, and aeolian deposits. Aeolian deposits. The deposits are formed. The deposits which are formed by the truly on the basis of wind action. Those deposits are called as aeolian deposits or iskanic shape along the. So these are the things which are comes from the aeolian deposits. So these 4 questions will come mostly. The essay question is geological action of wind. Geological action of wind. Then second one is geological deposits. So the deposits due to wind action. So deposits and geological action of wind. So these are the 2 questions mostly asking for the essay questions. And short questions as barkines, sipes, and sand dunes, roes. So that's all. It comes from these topics. Okay. So this is about wind action. And then the first unit, let me pick some questions from the first chapter, black one. Okay. So pick the questions from first chapter. So from this first chapter, write about the different branches in geology. Okay. Write about the different branches in geology. Like physical geology, mineralogy, crystallography, petrology, paleontology, yes, stratigraphy, structural geology, economic geology. So all these things you need to write to this question. Okay. And US of geology. భూజ్ఞాన శాస్త్రం యొక్క ఉపయోగాలు ఏంటి? And history of geology. భూజ్ఞాన శాస్త్రం యొక్క history of geology and its developments. That is also important questions. Then coming to solar system. Solar system. In this solar system, write about the solar system. So you need to write the planets: Earth, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Okay. So these are the. Then coming to Earth, Bhumi. So formation of Earth, formation of the origin of Earth, very, very important. Nebular hypothesis is planetesimal hypothesis, tidal hypothesis, origin of the Earth. Very good, definite question, origin of the Earth.
సార్ ఇవి కూడా ఒకసారి మాకు గ్రూప్ లో PDF లో పెడితే బాగుంటుంది సార్.
Yeah, so tomorrow morning I will do one thing. So the important questions I will put it on the right. I will write on the white paper and post in the group. So chapter wise, okay.
ఓకే సార్, థాంక్యూ.
Chapter wise.
సార్ అట్లే మాకు టెస్ట్ పేపర్ ఫాలో అయితే.
Yeah, that is enough. That is enough. And I will also post some material. Question wise, I will post the material tomorrow itself. So actually today a little bit busy. That's why I'm unable to post today. So by tomorrow itself, I will post the.
సార్ ఇంకా నెక్స్ట్ నుంచి క్లాసెస్ బందా సార్?
Yes. Speak loudly.
సార్ నెక్స్ట్ నుంచి ఇంకా ఈ రోజుకి లాస్ట్ క్లాసెస్? క్లాసెస్ ఈ రోజుకి నా లాస్ట్.
ఈ రోజు లాస్ట్. Tomorrow onwards you don't have class.
సరే సార్,
revision only.
సార్ మెటీరియల్స్ PDF అవన్నీ పెట్టేసేయండి సార్ మీరు గ్రూప్ లో.
Yeah, నేను tomorrow I will post the material. Don't worry.
Okay సార్.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Hello. హలో.
సార్ వెళ్ళిపోయారు.
ఓకే సరే సార్.
ఏ గ్రూప్ లో పెడతారు? ఇప్పుడు BSc మ్యాథ్స్ గ్రూప్ ఉంది కదా, దాంట్లో పెడతారా
సార్? దాంట్లో పెట్టాడు. ఇది సెపరేట్ జియోలజీ గ్రూప్ ఉంది కదా ఒకటి.
అవునా, లింక్ ఉందా? ఒక్కసారి షేర్ చేస్తారా ప్లీజ్?
షేర్ చేస్తా.
అది చాట్
మీ నెంబర్ పెట్టండి షేర్ చేపిస్తాను.
చాట్ గ్రూప్ లో అదే చాట్ లో పెట్టొచ్చు కదా.
లింక్ ఓకే ఓకే సెండ్ చేస్తాను ఒక్క నిమిషం. పెట్టినా
ఓకే ఓకే థ్యాంక్ యూ. వచ్చింది.
ఓకే. ప్రాక్టికల్స్ గురించి అడిగేది ఉండే సార్. ప్రాక్టికల్స్ గురించి అడిగేది ఉండే సార్. హలో
హలో.
ప్రాక్టికల్ గురించి ఏమన్నా తెలుసా?
తెలీదండి. ఎగ్జామ్స్
అవునా?
తర్వాత పెడతారంట కదా.